Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Coach, I hate to be the one to ask this, but is there any fear or any doubt that Cam's status could change?
I'm not talking about Cameron Newton unless it's got something to do with the first 11 games and his performance in those games.
Well, you heard it right there. Gene Chizik not answering any questions about the off-the-field matters concerning Cam Newton. For Coach Chizik, Cecil Newton, etc., is it the right strategy to say no comment? Will Auburn be able to block out the distractions? That's what we're talking about on tonight's Tider Insider TV. More on Newton and how Alabama plans to deal with him on the field in just a moment. But first, good evening, everybody, and welcome into TITV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, Mountain Dew, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris, and let's get right to it, Rod. Iron Bowl week is here. You know, it only happens one day out of the year, but it's a day that reverberates all year long for Alabama and Auburn fans. Here's how the game breaks down on paper. In the SEC statistics, Auburn ranks first in both total offense and scoring offense, while Alabama is fourth and third respectively in those categories. But look down at the bottom of the screen. Total defense, Alabama is second. Scoring defense, the Tide is first in an era where people are lighting up the scoreboard. Bama giving up less than 13 a game. Auburn ranks 8th in both categories. But as we talked about, Auburn's greatest threat is their quarterback. And now Bama's defense will get an opportunity to do what other teams have failed miserably at. And that's, I won't say stop Cam Newton, but just slowing him down has been a chore. Our John Huddleston has more.
The Crimson Tide coaches and players will give quarterback Cam Newton his props.
You see Cam making plays that you wouldn't necessarily expect. You got two guys on his back, and he's stiff arming one guy, and the next thing you know, he breaks out with a 42-yard run.
That's what makes great players great. They're hard to tackle, and he's certainly one of those guys.
But while Newton looks to definitely be in a league of his own, the Tide players feel they know what it will take to stop him. In short, it's game on come Friday.
We've actually got a highlight reel of the way to tackle Cam. You don't really want to come in low on him. He's a big guy. So, he likes to stiff arm, he likes to cut back, so you got to be aware of that. But, ultimately, I feel like if we do the scheme that Coach Saban has dialed up and we win in the defensive line, I feel like we'll do a pretty good job of slowing Cam down.
You might think Alabama will stop Newton the way that they stopped Tim Tebow last season in the SEC championship game. But Saban says while the two quarterbacks draw comparisons, they're as much different as they are alike.
Even though there's some similarities in some of the plays that they run, I think their style is completely different in terms of how they do those things.
Saban says the best way to go about stopping Newton and the Tigers might just be to beat them at their own game.
People that have been in ball games with them have been able to score enough points to stay in the game, and I think that's going to be important in this game.
As far as our approach, we just need to be methodical, score points, and make the most of every opportunity. Every time we get in the red zone, we got to try to get points out of it.
John Huddleston of TITV with that report. And of course, Rodney, having a strategy to stop Cam Newton, thinking based on watching tape, how to stop Cam Newton, and actually going out there on the field and doing it, obviously two different things. I mean, it would be naive to think other defensive coaches didn't have a good scheme and a good plan. But this guy is something special. I think you can make the argument that he's had as big an impact on his team as a first-year player as any player we've ever seen in the Southeastern Conference, including Herschel Walker.
Well, he's certainly in that category. I don't think there's any question about it. When you're talking about stopping him, there's been 10 defensive coordinators, Gary, that haven't been able to figure it out yet. But I want to say, I think Nick Saban has been working on this game a lot longer than what he would probably admit.
All right, you watch him make plays, and I asked Coach Saban about this in the press conference on Sunday. You can have a good scheme. Guys can be assignment solid and sound. In other words, you can do everything right, and he can still bust you wide open by just having one guy miss a tackle. When you get an opportunity to get him on the ground, somehow you got to find a way.
Yeah, you do. That's what's most frustrating about him, Gary, and where his defense is down is his ability to take a play that looks like they've got him trapped, and he makes something happen. Usually it's something very big happen. So, again, that's one of the more frustrating things for defenses in trying to contain Cam Newton, his elusiveness. But, he doesn't get a lot of credit for his ability to throw the ball, but he's been outstanding doing that.
You know, another danger is they've got playmakers other than Cam Newton, good receivers. You try to play man-to-man on them, though, obviously, when people turn their back to run with the receivers, he sees that and he can take off. If you play zone and you're soft and there are creases in the zone, he's a good enough passer that he'll find the open guy. He can throw the ball well enough. I mean, we're sitting here discussing all these things. In your opinion, what's the best way to try to play this guy?
You know, last year when Tim Tebow in the championship game, you talk about they're totally different kind of players, but in some respects they're similar. I think what you have to do, if you watched early in the season, what a lot of teams were doing, the defensive linemen were getting penetration and running past Cam Newton, and he'd step up. You had the defensive backs with their backs turned, and it's like a punt return. You know, somebody's looking to find Cam Newton with the ball, and, you know, it made it very difficult. I think it's going to be very similar for what Alabama does that they did with Tim Tebow, Gary. Keep him standing, keep the defensive lineman in front of him, make him throw the ball down the field, not allow him to get outside.
You know, Ronnie, I think you mentioned Tebow. As great as he was and one of the great players in college football history, and of course he dished out some punishment, but you could get a lick on Tim Tebow. You could hit him. This guy just doesn't take any hits. I mean, he slides, he's slippery. I mean, it's been amazing. One of the great football players that I've ever seen. Of course, you heard Coach Saban refer to this earlier. One way to counter Cam Newton is by scoring points, and that's your offense doing its job. In the last couple of weeks, Alabama's offense has looked better. They seem to have really picked up the pace of their offense, the tempo. We won't say 2 minute, Rodney, but they've been in a hurry to get to the line of scrimmage and run a play, and it's worked out well.
Well, and again, I think in this game, though, Gary, I'm not sure that up-tempo is the way you want to go. I think certainly you want to possess the ball as much as and long as you can, because the best place, the best defense for Cam Newton is to keep him on the bench. So, you know, it's very important that Alabama get its running game going. Auburn, though, defensively has struggled in some ways this year in pass defense. They've been pretty strong against the run. They're strong up front. They only allow 111 yards on the ground this season. So, again, Alabama's going to have to get the running game going and possess the football, run some clock, and they're going to have to finish drives with touchdowns, no field goals.
That's the key, because I'll agree with you to a point. Possessing the ball for 15 plays and scoring at the end of it would be great. You keep it, but the most important thing, though, is getting points. Whether it's 1 play, 6 plays, 8 plays, 10 plays, you've got to score points. I think you and I would agree. You're not going to hold this team down to 13, 17, 18, 20 points. I mean, you're going to have to score to beat them. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, there's a stat about Auburn, Gary. Anytime they've scored 30 or more points, I think they've won 60-something straight games. If they've scored over 30.
Wow.
That's pretty stunning.
Well, maybe Bama will break that streak on Friday. We'll let you know how we think the game is going to play out. Our predictions are coming up later on. And also still to come, we'll hear from both Nick Saban and Gene Chizik. They'll talk about the rich tradition of this rivalry and why it doesn't matter come Friday. Also, Tider Insider TV will be taking your phone calls at 205-348-9882, or you can email us, TITV@WVUATV.com. But up next, we'll break away from Iron Bowl coverage and talk football recruiting. You know, the class of 2012 already coming together for Alabama. This speedster right there from Prattville High School is the Tide's latest commitment. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV. Alabama's latest football commitment in a moment, but first, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite places to eat in Tuscaloosa, Nuke's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard East, convenient to the UA campus, open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. I was just in there the other day, as a matter of fact, enjoyed a Simply salad and a half turkey sandwich. Good. Their oven-toasted sandwiches, California-style pizza, hand-tossed salad, everything made with fresh ingredients. They've got a beer and wine menu, a terrific dessert menu as well to top off that great meal. 758-2455. It's fast and it's convenient, but it's not fast food. It's Nuke's Express Cafe in Tuscaloosa. All right, Rodney, football recruiting for 2011. The Tide trying to wrap up that class and put it together for February, but already working hard on 2012. Several commitments. Already 2 from Prattville High School, the latest coming following the Georgia State game. Let's look at Justin Thomas, number 5. Now, he plays quarterback at Prattville High School, but he's not a big kid. How do you see his future with Alabama?
Well, you know, talking to his dad, that was the thing. Alabama told him they would give him a legitimate shot to play quarterback. You see how elusive he is. He narrowed it down to Alabama, Miami, and Florida. Was very close to committing to Florida, actually. But he wants a shot at quarterback. Nick Saban told him they'll give them that shot, and we'll see what happens. But as you can see, Gary, he is an elusive athlete.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, since 1991 or so, every smaller guy that plays quarterback, that has quick feet, is elusive as compared to David Palmer. And, you know, David Palmer, once in a generation type player, but this young man does have incredibly quick feet. I mean, he can stop on a dime and cut and makes a lot of guys miss. Well, he can throw it pretty well, too.
Yeah, and if you remember, Marquise Mays was a high school quarterback, played a lot of different positions, and you look at Justin, you could project him, you know, maybe in a similar role to Marquise Mays, but again, I don't want to get ahead because he is going to get a shot at quarterback.
I know it's early, but a long way. We're not even done with 2011, but this 2012 class already off and running and looking strong again. It's just year after year with Nick Saban.
You know, when you look in state, a lot of great players next year. Reggie Ragland, Jameis Winston, the great quarterback from Hueytown, several others, Quan Alexander, linebacker from Oxford, and many others. And I think, you know, right now, Gary, Alabama's looking extremely good with a lot of those guys. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it eventually pans out.
All right, Rodney, coming up, we'll hear from the two head coaches in this week's Alabama-Auburn game. And here's an interesting question. Would Auburn be undefeated if they played Alabama's schedule? We'll debate that topic coming up. Tider Insider TV will also be taking your phone calls and emails. There's the information on the screen to get in touch with us. But as we go to break, Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy found out over the weekend that he was not selected as a Rhodes Scholar. But today he was named the ESPN Academic All-American of the Year for FBS football. That ain't bad. The award is voted on by sports information directors across the nation. Congratulations to Greg McElroy.